Hey, everybody, welcome to Breakfast All Day. We're back. Alonso's here with Matt and Christy, still virtual, but just because schedules are crazy, not because we don't want to be in a room together. That'll be happening soon, we promise.
I can't leave my pool.
I like how people are like, you guys are all vaccinated. Fucking get in the same room together. But we also have other lives.
Indeed.
And summer activities that require my carpooling abilities.
And we all live in very different parts of the sprawl that is the Southland. So, you know.
So speaking of the Southland, so we've got a lot of COVID news this week, some of which is here in LA County, some of which is nationwide. Basically, this Delta variant is pretty damn strong, and it is supposedly spreading as contagiously as chickenpox? Or was it smallpox?
Oh God, I hadn't heard.
I heard chickenpox.
Yeah,
Yikes.
chickenpox. And so a lot of places are once again mandating mask use. And so, for example, you go to Disneyland or Universal Studios or Six Flags, they want you to wear a mask even if you're vaccinated. LA City is requiring its employees to get vaccinated or take weekly COVID tests. The CDC is recommending masks indoors again. New York City is going to pay people $100 to get vaccinated. It shouldn't take that, but that is what is happening here in the world. Netflix productions are requiring actors and those working closest to them to get vaccinated.
Can we go back and talk about the $100 really quick?
Yes.
Because at this point, it's like, if you haven't gotten a vaccine by now, I have to imagine it's because it's not about access at this point. It's hard to imagine that. It's not that
not in New York City.
It's hard to imagine. So I'm gobsmacked by the idea of somebody saying, oh, I don't trust the vaccine. I'm not into it. I don't know that it's going to be safe, whatever. Oh, $100? Okay.
And now are they going to like, well, maybe if I hold out longer, they'll go with the 250, you know, like it just like now we're negotiating and it just,
it's craziness. And yeah, it's just that things are getting bad again. And, you know, hot vax summer is long since over. And now the fall is beginning. The LAUSD, the second largest school district in the nation, the LA school district, is considering having all of the students have to get COVID tested and or vaxxed, depending on how old they are.
Right.
Apparently, Pfizer has requested emergency use of its vaccine for kids ages 5 to 11 by the end of September. Currently, they're saying that kids, under 12 and up can still get it. And they're hoping to get it for kids younger than that, at least by early next year. But now Pfizer's hoping to get that out earlier. There's a lot going on. I went to see a movie last night at a theater. I went and saw The Green Knight last night, which we'll talk about later on in the show. And it was a crowded theater. This is the little theater, little Starlight Terrace theater in my neighborhood here. And usually there was like one other person. And there were a lot of like big families going together to see Jungle Cruise, going to see Snake Eyes, but everyone was wearing a mask.
Good.
So how do you guys feel about all this?
I mean, mostly furious that we're here and that there's so many people who are going out of their way to turn this whole thing into something political, whether it was masks, now it's vaccinations, that it's all like that somehow, you know, and so it's frustrating because you're seeing like, you know, they talked about we needed to reach certain numbers for us to move past this and we didn't, and so now we've got these fucking variants to deal with, and it's like I'm at the point now where when like, you know, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is referring to it as the Trump vaccine, I'm like, fine, call it what you want to call it. Yes, you're going to own the libs if you get the Trump vaccine. Please do it. Please own the libs and get the Trump vaccine in your arm, people, because holy crap.
I have two more
vaccine.
Go ahead. What?
We get a Trump vaccine that vaccinates us against Trump and his minions.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. There's all kinds of like stupid theater going on with like House Republicans waltzing over to the Senate without masks on because the Senate does not require masks. I have two more pieces of quick vaccination news. Shake Shack. If you want to get your Shake Shack burger, they're requiring employees and customers to be vaccinated. And the New York Times has indefinitely postponed bringing all of its employees back into the newsroom. It was supposed to have been September 7th, and now that is indefinite. Matt, what were you going to say?
I've just had an idea that I'm not going to do, but I'm going to throw it out there, and someone's going to make a bunch of money. Write a script in mind that you're going to sell it to Ben Shapiro's production company about an apocalypse that's caused 3 or 4 years after the vaccine has gone out and wipes out everybody that got vaccinated, and only the survivors have made it. Only the unvaccinated survived because everybody else was wiped out by the vaccine, that they went too fast, that they did too quickly. And that is absolutely a script you could sell to Ben Shapiro for his new bullshit production company.
I mean, sadly, these folks who have done the research, which is like, I watch Fox News a lot, and I go to untrustworthy, ridiculous websites, this is their end game. And it's, I don't want to feed that beast anymore, frankly.
Alonso, when you say you watch Fox News a lot, that it's like, do you also put knives in the electric outlets?
Oh, I'm not
like,
saying
do you also put
Oh, he's paraphrasing that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
I'm describing, please. This is nonsense, and it is literally killing people now. And I'm like, and I don't know how many COVID deniers have to be hospitalized and die, which we've been seeing over and over and over again.
That's the Men in Black taking them out.
Like, how, I don't know how many of those have to have, where people maybe start thinking, oh, maybe they don't know what the hell they're talking about. But it's like, I've seen so many of these, like, a life in 4 tweets where it's like, denial, I'm in the hospital, we're so sorry that our friend is dead. It's like,
no, that's because the conspirators got to those people and got them sick.
But I feel like when Trump got it and people still thought it was all bullshit, like that was a turning point, right?
And he got the vaccine. Trump's been vaccinated. Also, every single person who sets foot in the Fox News building in New York has been vaccinated.
I got a couple more little COVID things for you, then we'll move on to the important news like Bennifer. There's a restaurant in Huntington Beach called Basilicos, where they are urging unvaccinated patrons. They have a sign in their front window that says, "We have zero tolerance for treasonous, anti-American stupidity." And they also have a Godfather billboard, like a billboard with the whole like Godfather logo with the marionette string thing, saying, "Leave the mask, take the cannoli." And Burning Man has been canceled for the 2nd year in a row.
Well, look, those assholes at Huntington Beach just want publicity, and sadly, we've just given them some. But I mean, there's so much ridiculous posturing here that, again, like if we'd had Fox News in the 50s, we would all still be dealing with polio. This makes me mad, and it makes me sad, and I don't look forward to being trapped in my apartment again because everyone's a fuckwit who can't like understand how science works and how public policy works. And here we are again.
The three of us all live in very different parts of LA County, very different kinds of neighborhoods. I'm wondering what the two of you are seeing in your neighborhood around where you live.
I haven't been going out and about that much, but like the times that I have gone into my neighborhood grocery store, everyone is wearing a mask still. And the signs are telling you that you have to wear one. And I have yet to see any Karens like pitch a fit about it. So Karens of either gender, let's be clear. I have not seen anybody get mad about that, but that's been about the extent of my going out into the world, apart from going to some press screenings where, again, we're told in advance you have to wear a mask, and everybody wears a mask and no one drops dead.
Yeah, I won't go in a building without wearing a mask. I just feel like I need to still. And that's what I feel like I've mostly been seeing around. I mean, I haven't gone out that much. I can tell you that everybody's really, most of the chatter that I've seen in the neighborhood and like the dumb Nextdoor app is people getting mad about the homeless encampments. That's what everybody's pissed off about, more so than the masks. So, yeah.
I'm at the beach a lot. I'm at the beach and I'm at swim practice, and there are not masks. Like the swim coaches wear masks. I think like on campus they're supposed to. But I don't see a lot of masks because people are outdoors a lot down here. And
I can't imagine they're going to make the swimming kids wear masks.
no, but I mean, like, they might want you to wear it as you're walking to the pool, and then you get your temperature checked, and then you take your mask off, and then you go.
Right.
They're all wearing masks made of like wetsuit material.
Right. How much chlorine does it take to kill COVID?
Yeah. Grocery stores and Costco, people are totally wearing masks.
Okay. Yeah, I've had to go to Century City a few times for screenings or other things. And even though that is an open air mall for the most part, like the stores are inside, but there's no ceiling over the whole thing, people are pretty steadfastly wearing masks except in the food court. So I haven't, I'm sure like Orange County probably paints another picture, but from where I've been, it's been pretty much people are compliant and happy to do so.
I'm now kind of wishing that I did buy one of those like space helmet masks with the little air conditioner in it, like the little fans and stuff.
What happened to those? Did those ever get past the crowdsourcing thing? Like I don't feel like
I think they were too I think that they were running, like $100 a pop, and then everybody thought it was over.
Maybe.
And so it was like, yeah.
But I mean, that was one of those things where they crowdfunded way past what their goal was. And ostensibly by now people would be receiving them and using them. And I have yet to see one.
I'm just going to go back to wearing a Boba Fett helmet around.
We'll move on to some happy news.
Yes,
Bennifer is back, baby. So we recorded on Saturday of last week. And like, while I'm getting my hair done that afternoon, I see this picture, the JLo post on Instagram and on Twitter from her 52nd birthday celebration. And she's like on a yacht making out with Ben Affleck. And
there were like 4 pictures,
gasped.
right?
Like 4, but the fourth one.
Right. The first 3 are her in her bikini, which collectively is smaller than most of the masks that I wear. And right on, she looks great. And then, then it's her making out with Ben.
I love it. And then later on, they posted pictures, or she posted pictures, like essentially recreating the Jenny from the Block video, where she's like on her belly on the yacht in a bikini, and he's like massaging her ass.
Yes, somebody pointed out those 2 photos being similar. They also pointed out that the picture of the 2 of them standing and making out is not unlike the Gigli poster.
Yep. Our friend Kyle Buchanan posted
that's a flex.
Listen, we need to bring Gigli need to make that happen and resurrect Martin Brest's career.
I just think it's great. And so she turned 52. Apparently this yacht trip was something she was supposed to have taken with A-Rod and just like shoved Ben Affleck into it. What's funny too about that is that recently it was A-Rod's birthday also. He turned 46, which he also did on a yacht. So like he got his own yacht.
Ben is the best case scenario designated hitter.
Anyway,
I mean, what are they going to do? Go to Color Me Mine? I mean,
It's really, I love it. I love the dueling birthday yacht pictures, the European yacht photos. It makes me so happy.
Speaking of
celebrities,
birthday photos,
are just like us.
Did we catch the picture or the video of Dolly Parton in her Playboy bunny outfit for her husband's birthday?
I saw the stills. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So she dressed up in a Playboy outfit for her husband's birthday, and it's legendary. It's great.
Good for her. Good for her. The other big news of the week, and like just in the last day, there's been a ton of news, is of course, Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney for breach of contract over Black Widow. She was promised contractually that it would be a purely theatrical release. And then when it was determined that it would also be on Disney Plus, apparently her people tried to negotiate with Disney to reconfigure that, because clearly, like, if you can watch it at your house, it's going to cut into the box office and what she's owed. She's owed an estimated $50 million is what she would have gotten if this were purely a theatrical release.
Right.
And then Disney fired back saying, oh, it's tasteless to like try to bilk us during a pandemic.
Well, if you read the Wall Street Journal story, they had looked at the filing, and there was an email in the filing that is supposed to have come from one of the higher level corporate counsels at Disney saying, yes, we realize that there is substantial box office targets for you, and we want to make sure we come to an understanding before anything happens for this going straight to Disney Plus. And so at some point, whoever was in charge of like the actual payment, I have to imagine like you've got lawyers that aren't talking to each other and somebody shit the bed badly. And then that response, like, I mean, who was it that you sent the tweet around that was like, what was it, like Legal Boy or something? Like,
yeah, the law boy tweeted
law
like,
boy?
if your
Right.
response to a thing is like, but the pandemic, then you totally breached that contract.
Well, also, isn't Disney like forcing its employees to like move across the country or lose their jobs because of the pandemic? I mean,
that too.
totally tone deaf. Right?
Well, I don't know that it's not the pandemic. It's that the better tax rates in Florida to run the theme park business. What's unfortunate and I think potentially short-sighted, and this, I hope that wiser heads prevail at Disney, is you have to think for anyone coming in and negotiating a contract for phase 4 or phase 5 or whatever, they've now communicated, this lawsuit has shown what a company might do. So you have to work out all of that ahead of time, and it kind of hurt. I have to imagine it hurts Disney from a negotiating standpoint.
Well, I think once the Disney Plus and HBO Max announcements were made about, oh, no, we're just going to plop them to streaming now, I'm sure immediately all future contract lawyers were like, that became part of the flow chart of, well, if this happens, then this, and if this happens, then this. And, I think a lot of people, when these first announcements were made, you had a lot of the HBO Max people like Gal Gadot and stuff who were also pissed because their contracts had payouts that very directly dealt with theatrical box office. And then we didn't hear about that anymore. So we figure some kind of terms were met, and I'm sure terms were met with, I'm sure Dwayne Johnson has some kind of deal like that for Jungle Cruise. And so like they had to make him happy. So the fact that they bobbled this on Johansson just seems like, you're right. Either lawyers aren't talking to each other or it's just plain old ineptness, because this was such a huge shift to go from theatrical to, theatrical and kind of this other thing,
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. Like the Wall Street Journal article mentioned that Warner Brothers, they had said that Warner Brothers had done some negotiating with their big stars. And then like I texted to you guys, it looks particularly bad for Disney because this was Johansson's last outing. And so you a little bit wonder if they're just like, fine.
Natasha's dead anyway. Who cares?
Right. Like, who cares? I mean,
they wouldn't.
What's also a little obnoxious is that the margins, even though you may have like the per person cost potentially jumps down, right? Because if you've got a family of 5 watching Black Widow at home for the $30 charge,
right,
that's a lot less per person than everybody going to the theater, right? But the margins for that, for the digital experience, are so much higher than they are for showing it in the theater.
Right, because the theater takes like at least half of that ticket price.
That first weekend, right. And there's a lot of other pieces that go into that. So the margins are much higher on the home video part and the streaming part. And so it's not like there's not wiggle room there for the studio, but well, I mean.
We should talk about David Ayer, speaking of blockbusters and wanting a do-over and such. So next week, we're going to talk about The Suicide Squad, which I think you guys have seen. Alonso, at least.
I have, yeah.
Okay. I'm going next week on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. Although I got to tell you, like we talked about this last week, like I'm a lot more hesitant to go to theaters these days.
Yeah. So wear your N95 mask and sit far, far away from me. Don't hug me. I don't want a hug from you. I mean, I do, but I'm unclean. I mean, I'll shower. I'm not like Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis unclean. Did you see that thing?
No.
They announced that they don't shower or bathe, and their kids don't either. Celebrities are just like us.
I mean, I've heard Viggo Mortensen doesn't either.
Who doesn't?
I've heard that about Viggo Mortensen.
Viggo Mortensen. So. They're eccentric, these stars. But anyway, so David Ayer directed, of course, Suicide Squad, which came out a few years back.
5 years ago.
Was it 5 years ago? And it was not really all that well received. And so now we have The Suicide Squad, which people seem to be really liking. And so David Ayer apparently for a long time has been talking about how he has his own cut of this film, not unlike the Snyder cut of Justice League or the Richard Donner cut of Superman 2, which we're going to talk about on our Patreon. How's that for a segue?
Nice.
Thank you. But David Ayer wrote this whole long thing about his past, and he's a fighter, and here's what he's had to overcome, and
The movie you saw is not the one that I intended
It's not
to
my
make.
movie. Right.
Yeah.
It's totally, the studio cut is not at all what I intended. And how many directors say that? Like, so many, I'm sure, especially when it comes to a big property like this.
Although,
This what he did has a score the whole way through. There are no rock songs in his version at all. There's like a totally different third act that resolves things in a more satisfying way. Anyway, so now there is this hashtag release the Ayer cut movement going around on Twitter.
which I'm a little less dubious about than the Snyder Cut one, just because it exists. Like, you know, the Snyder, when he had to go back and do all that reshooting and whatever else, like, I think this is a movie that happens. It became fairly common knowledge, certainly among the industry, that what happened with Suicide Squad was Warner Brothers, I don't know if it was at Comic-Con or just a trailer, but they dropped this trailer that was like cut to accentuate, like, this movie's funny in an R-rated way, and it's the big bright pops of color.
They wanted to make it look like Guardians of the Galaxy.
Exactly. And that trailer played like gangbusters, and then suddenly they were like, can we turn the movie into what this trailer is promising? Because it's not. And so we wound up with what we wound up with, which is neither fish nor fowl. And so, yeah, if I would be curious to see what David Ayer's version was prior to that level of tinkering, because there was a very specific end game that the studio suddenly imposed on a film that had not previously had that as a goal. So sure, yeah, let's take a look at it. Why not?
Okay.
Yeah, I like Ayer as a filmmaker. I think, I mean, you could argue that he falls in that grimdark category, but I think he actually legit, like, his movies are bleak anyway. Like, I love The Gray. The Gray is one of my favorite movies.
The Gray, Fury's good.
Fury's good. And so I think his take on superheroes, especially something like Suicide Squad, to his vision, I'd be very curious to see that, because I would not be surprised to find that it is tighter and does end more satisfying, because we all know that a lot of times studio interference can fuck things up. Not all the time, but most of the time. Yeah, I'd be curious to see that. I'm more curious than, say, the Snyder Cut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get that someday. And if we do, we will talk about it. So one movie we're talking about later on the show is Stillwater, which is loosely based on the case of Amanda Knox, who was the American college student who was convicted and then later acquitted in the killing of her roommate. We'll talk about Stillwater later on, but because this movie has come out, Amanda Knox put out this whole big long Twitter thread about, like, I'm so sick of people, taking my life and using it for fodder, for thrills or for drama or whatever. Like, nobody came and talked to me. Tom McCarthy, who directed it and co-wrote it, who also did Spotlight, of course, among many other films, says that, it's not her story. It was sort of a touchstone, but this is not her story. The film takes place in Marseille. It's about a father-daughter relationship, among many other things. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I get where she's coming from, but at the same time, I kind of feel like Hollywood has been making rip from the headlines, but we changed all the names stories since the dawn of the medium. There are so many movies that you can look back as being sort of veiled accounts of, like, the Lana Turner, Johnny Stompanato shooting, or, like the Jackie Kennedy story or whatever. Like that this is not new. Like, the idea of, here's a thing, and we're going to tell you a story that's real similar to it, and you might look for commonalities and behind the scenes, but of course, this is, any resemblance to persons living or dead is purely coincidental. Valley of the Dolls, for God's sake, is, like, very much based on specific people. So I understand why she's upset to be the person that's happening to right now, but I think that there's not much you can do about it once you have become, by choice or not, kind of an infamous public figure. Then people are going to tell stories that lean on that public part of it, but maybe change everything around for their own purpose. And I don't know. I empathize with what she's saying, but I think this has happened a million times before, and it will continue to happen forever.
A couple things she's upset about is that it gets referred to in a very, like, quick, dismissive way as, like, the Amanda Knox saga. Or they mention that she was convicted, but they don't mention that she was subsequently acquitted. and is now free.
Right. But then none of that's the movie's fault. That's the overall discussion about her case. And
yes,
I don't know.
Bob Odenkirk is apparently doing better. There were reports that he collapsed on the set of Better Call Saul in New Mexico, and it was possibly a heart incident. But David Cross just today tweeted that he talked to him on the phone and he's joking and he's feeling great and he's going to be out soon and will come out with a statement. And so there is hope that Bob Odenkirk's going to be okay. But there was just massive outpouring of love for this man. So that's good news.
Yes.
Are you guys watching the Olympics?
Nope.
Not really.
Exciting stuff is happening. So we should talk about Simone Biles. Speaking of women being thrashed about in the media, Simone Biles decided to pull out initially of the team competition, and then from the all around, she was feeling like mentally she was not there. She has been through so much. There is so much pressure. There are so many expectations, and she did not want to hinder her team. So she pulled out, and she's been getting just untold amounts of shit. I mean, a lot of support too about, prioritizing her mental health. But a lot of people are like, if I just quit on my team, if I quit on my job, what would that say about me?
Does your job have an alternate?
One of the things I read she had talked about was that she said that she had a case of the twisties. And for those that don't know, according to this story, that's when a gymnast starts to lose track and isn't able to necessarily count how many spins or flips they've done, which is fantastically dangerous, right? Like, you see what those girls do, especially women's gymnastics. You see what those young women do, that if they don't make it around the whole time, that can be fatal, right? And I mean, talking Carrie Strug into going through with her balance beam routine, I don't know that was the right move.
Her vault,
right? With her bad leg, right? Yeah. I don't know that was the right move to do with her, because that could have cost her leg. Right?
It was viewed as heroic at the time. Like, oh, wow, look at that American grit and determination.
Through the pain.
Right. So, like Simone Biles, who is the greatest of all time, right? Like, it's hard to imagine anyone even approaching what she does ever, right? She's all but redefined the sport. If she says she's not up to it, fuck everybody who thinks otherwise, right? Like, okay, go ahead and do it. Fucko. Like, she's not up for it, fine, right? She doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. And yes, is the team frustrated? I bet you each one of those young women on that team would rather see her take care of herself.
Yes.
If only because it gives them permission to do the same.
Well, the people who have been the most vocally obnoxious about this whole thing are also the people who feel very entitled to determine, like, how women, and Black women in particular, use their bodies, use their talents. And yeah, it's none of their fucking business. And part of being at the level of somebody like Simone Biles is knowing when you need to say, it is not a good idea for me to do this right now.
Right. This is not the Gilead Olympic team.
Exactly.
It's important, though. I think it was someone of that stature, no pun intended, because she's 4'8", but somebody of that stature comes forward and says, like, this is important, that will give a lot of other folks the affirmation that they can do the same when you're at the absolute top of your game. And like Naomi Osaka,
exactly. I was just going to say,
did the same thing when she's like, I can't do news conferences. She was upset recently at the Olympics, but it was, I think it's important to have that precedent be set.
Yeah, I mean, real quick on this, like, it is a almost cliche in baseball that a coach will pull a pitcher if a pitcher seems off mentally, right? They'll pull him at the drop of a hat and replace him with the new pitcher. Oh, you're not there mentally today. You're having a bad day. We're going to replace you. Why is that okay? Right? That somebody's just, their head's not in it and they get replaced when it's the coach's decision, but it's not the player's decision.
And that gave the opportunity for Suni Lee, American gymnast, to win the women's all around. Like, she won the gold medal, young Hmong American gymnast Suni Lee. And so she stepped up and So there is an American who has that goal. So for all of you who like need to have America win stuff, yay, it happened. Also, did you guys see when Tom Daley, British diver Tom Daley,
Yes,
won his gold in the 10-meter synchronized platform? They showed, quote unquote, his husband reacting. His husband is Dustin Lance Black.
Oscar-winning
cute.
screenwriter.
Oscar winner. It's so funny. It's like I kept saying, watch how adorable it is when Tom Daley's husband reacts. I'm like, Tom Daley's husband has an Oscar and he's a person with a name. Maybe at the Oscars, Tom Daley is Dustin Lance Black's husband.
Yes, that's exactly.
They each got
they
got their own lanes, you know.
But it was really cute. And then his he was effervescent and joyous, and it was really sweet. And then at the news conference afterward, Tom Daley said, I feel incredibly proud to say I'm a gay man and also an Olympic champion. So that will, I'm sure, help people too to feel inspired, to feel proud of themselves. A couple more things. Levar Burton finally hosting Jeopardy this week. This is the guest host that everyone was psyched about. Did you guys watch it?
I haven't. I should have put it in TiVo. I forgot that was happening this week. I haven't watched Jeopardy in a while.
It is this week. Also, a couple more things. You see this whole Lucy Liu and Bill Murray thing?
Yes.
Is this? I mean, is there anything new on this? Because this has been a thing that's been coming up for a while now.
She went on Jen Yamato's podcast. She went on Asian Enough, the LA Times podcast that Jen Yamato, our friend Jen, co-hosts with Frank Shong. And she was talking about what happened on the set of Charlie's Angels in 2000 and how like verbally abusive and dismissive he was toward her and how shocked she was by that. And then I guess Bill Murray, like in 2009, was asked about that. And he said, like, if you are on set with me and you're unprofessional and you're not prepared, then I am going to be totally dismissive of you. So I don't know what the whole precipitating thing was, but Lucy Liu was saying that Bill Murray, maybe not a nice guy.
Yeah, I read the transcript. It sounded like he was yelling at everybody and then started to zero in on her, and she wasn't having it and gave it to him back.
Good on her.
Good for you, petite lady. Also, sad news. ZZ Top bass player Dusty Hill died this week.
Yes.
At age 72.
That's a bummer.
He's one of the two guys who has a beard.
Right.
Yes.
But the
guy who does have a beard, his last name is Beard.
I always remember that there was an offer, I think right around the time Eliminator had gone gold, that Gillette was going to offer to pay them $1 million each to shave their beards off. And I think it was, I don't remember which one of them said like, no, man, we don't remember what we look like and we're going to be too ugly.
It's disconcerting, I will tell you. Like looking in the mirror for months after I shaved my beard off this year, I was like, it was like seeing somebody else. It was very weird.
But you were like hot, sexy Richard Gere, Alonso, when you didn't have your beard.
Yes, identical. I was constantly being mistaken in public for hot, sexy Richard Gere.
You got the silver hair and the beautiful brown eyes. And
well, you're very sweet, but I'm happier having the beard on my face.
All right, that's all I have for news for you guys today.
All righty. Well, listen, thanks everybody for watching. Like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check us out at BeFast All Day on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And as Christy mentioned, today on our Patreon for our Off the Menu selection for July, we will be talking about the late Richard Donner's cut of Superman 2. There's so many cuts of superhero movies floating around. Release the Jeremiah Chechik cut of the Avengers. Anyway, so we got that coming up. We're also recapping Ted Lasso. So lots of cool things that only our Patreon subscribers get to listen to. So maybe you should become one. Patreon.com/BeFastAllDay. We'll see you next week. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye.